This lesson is a lesson on multiplication properties of exponents. We're going to take a look at examples of raising a power to a power and raising a product to a power. To raise a power to a power, we remember the words multiply the exponents. So in this example, 5 to the fourth raised to the second power, we can think of that as 5 to the fourth times 5 to the fourth. And if we remember our rules about the same base, keep the base and add the exponents, we have 5 to the 4 plus 4, or in other words, 5 to the 8th. But if we follow the rules of a power to a power multiplying the exponents, that looks like this. 5 to the fourth raised to the second is 5 to the 4 times 2, which is 5 to the 8th. So we get the same answer, and we have now used our new rule, keeping the base, raise a power to a power, multiply the exponents. Here's another example. We have x to the second times x to the sixth, which is raised to the negative 4 power. So in order to simplify that, I have x to the second times x to the 6 times negative 4, which is equal to x to the second times x to the negative 24. We have the same base, so we're going to keep the base of x, and then we're going to add the exponents, 2 plus a negative 24. And so our simplest answer becomes x to the negative 22. Not quite there yet because we have a negative exponent, and in simplest form we cannot have a negative exponent. So we're going to use our rule of a negative exponent means the reciprocal. So this means x to the negative 22nd in simplest form is 1 over x to the 22nd. Our next example, we have a negative power raised to a negative power. So we follow our rules of integers and multiplication. A negative times a negative is a positive. So we have r to the negative 5 times negative 2 multiplied times r to the third. So this equals r, negative 5 times negative 2 is a positive 10, times r to the third. We have the same base, so we're going to keep that r, and we're going to add exponents, 10 plus 3. So our final answer is r to the 10 plus 3, or r to the 13th. Our next property has to do with raising a product to a power. Here we're going to raise each factor to the power and multiply. If we do this longhand, we have 3x raised to the fourth power. That looks like 3x times 3x times 3x times 3x. We can use the commutative property. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times x times x times x times x. So that becomes 3 to the fourth times x to the fourth, which is 81x to the fourth. But if we simply use our rule of raising each factor of power and multiplying, then we'll get the same thing in a lot fewer steps. So if we have 3x to the fourth, that whole quantity rather, raised to the fourth, that's 3 raised to the fourth, each factor raised to that power, and x raised to the fourth. And that equals 81x to the fourth. So we see we get the same answer with fewer steps. Another example, we have x to the negative 2 raised to the second power multiplied times 3xy to the fifth, that entire product raised to the fourth power. So our first factor, a power raised to a power, we have x to the negative 2 times 2, and our second product raised to a power means that the 3 is raised to the fourth power, the x is raised to the fourth power, and the y is raised to the 5 times fourth power. And so negative 2 times 2, that leaves us with an x to the negative 4, times a 3 to the fourth, which is 81, times an x to the fourth, times a y to the 5 times 4, or y to the 20th. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of my coefficients out front, followed by my variables in alphabetical order. I have an x to the negative 4 and an x to the fourth, so we'll keep the base and add exponents. And then we have a y to the 20th. Well, if I have an x to the negative 4 plus 4, that's x to the 0 power, and then y to the 20th. Well, anything to the 0 power is 1, so our simplest answer is 81y to the 20th. We have one more example that we're going to look at. We have the product of 3c to the fifth power, all raised to the fourth, multiplied times the power c to the second, raised to a power the third. So we have a product raised to a power, so each factor gets raised to that power. So that becomes 3 to the fourth times c to the 5 times 4. And then our second product raised to a power raised to a power, c to the 2 times 3. 3 to the fourth is 81 times c to the 5 times 4, or c to the 20th, times c to the 2 times 3, or c to the 6th. We can simplify a bit more, and we get 81, keep the base of c to the 20 plus 6, and so our final simplest answer is 81c to the 26th.